Tonight on Reddit's For Sleep, I've got 10 calming Reddit stories to help you relax, unwind, and fall asleep. If you enjoy peaceful storytelling and want more every night, hit that subscribe button. It really helps. And you'll never run out of bedtime stories again. Story 1. I caught my son selling drugs and helped him cover up his tracks. But then I took everything. I always thought I knew my son. He was quiet, respectful, got decent grades, and stayed out of trouble. Or so I believed. Maybe that's why I missed the signs for so long. The subtle shifts in behavior, the expensive shoes he claimed were on sale, the late-night walks, the locked bedroom door. It was the phone bill that finally snapped the illusion. Hundreds of short, cryptic messages to unfamiliar numbers, mostly late at night. At first, I thought maybe he was being bullied or involved in something shady, but not this. Never this. One afternoon, I got off work early and decided to follow him. He said he was heading to the library to study. Instead, I watched him walk 3 blocks past it and slip into the back entrance of a rundown barbershop. I parked down the street, waited, and after about 20 minutes, he came out with a small black backpack and a nod from one of the older guys smoking outside. I followed him again. This time, he met 2 teenagers behind an abandoned gas station, handed one of them something from the bag, and walked away like he just dropped off homework. I felt sick. My son, my baby boy, was a drug dealer. That night, I waited in his room. He looked surprised but not scared when he saw me holding his backpack. "How long?" I asked. He didn't lie. He told me everything, that it started with weed, then pills, that it wasn't just him. He was part of a larger network run through encrypted apps, that he didn't even see half the people he sold to, just dropped packages in mailboxes or under benches. But the worst part, he was proud. He said, "Dad, I make over $30,000 a week. I'm smarter than the rest of them. I don't get caught." I was stunned. I'd spent my life breaking my back to put food on the table, and here he was, turning street corners into ATMs. I didn't hit him. I didn't scream. Instead, I told him to sit down, and we spent the next 6 hours destroying everything. Burner phones, SIM cards, lists, packaging, even flushing leftover product. I walked him through how to erase his digital footprint, delete accounts, and block contacts. I taught him how to disappear. I told him he was done, that this life was over, and there would be no second chances. He agreed, reluctantly. But I wasn't done. The next day, I accessed his laptop and found the crypto wallets, the hidden bank accounts, the shoebox full of cash under his bed. All in, it totaled just under $500,000. I didn't ask permission. I took it, every last cent, converted the crypto, closed the accounts, locked the cash away. I told him I was doing this because I loved him. Because drug money always comes back with a price. And if the cops didn't catch him, someone worse would. He lost it, screamed, cursed me out, told me I was ruining his life, that I didn't understand. And maybe I didn't. But I understood what it meant to see kids like him gunned down in parking lots or cuffed on the 10 o'clock news. He's clean now. It's been almost a year. He's working part-time at a local mechanics shop and starting community college in the fall. We don't talk about what happened. Not really. Sometimes I catch him looking at me with that mix of betrayal and confusion, like he still hasn't decided whether I saved him or destroyed him. Maybe both. As for the money, it's in a trust, in his name. But he won't see a cent of it until he graduates and stays out of trouble for 5 years. He doesn't know that. Not yet. One day, when he's older, maybe with a family of his own, I'll tell him. I'll show him the papers and the savings I protected for the version of him who finally understood that being a man isn't about fast money or street power. It's about knowing when to stop, even when you're winning, and walk away with your soul intact. Story 2. This teacher ruined my life. So I destroyed his career without ever breaking the law. It's been 7 years since Mr. Whitmore called me a failure. 7 years since he stood in front of my parents during a school meeting and told them I was mentally lazy, a waste of potential, and a future disappointment. I still remember how he smirked when I cried after he gave me a 0 on an essay. I spent weeks writing, claiming I plagiarized it without ever offering proof. I was 17 then, a kid, and he was the man who almost made me give up on myself. Mr. Whitmore was the head of the English department at our prestigious prep school. To most, he was the ideal teacher, sharp, articulate, respected. But once the doors closed, he played favorites shamelessly. If you were rich, athletic, or had the right last name, he'd praise you for breathing. The rest of us were invisible. I once got 45% on an essay I knew deserved more, while the guy next to me, who barely wrote in complete sentences, scored an 80%. The real fracture happened during a regular lesson. He claimed Sylvia Plath died from an overdose. I corrected him and said she actually died by using a gas oven. It wasn't about showing him up. I was just sharing what I read in her biography. But his ego couldn't take it. He stared at me like I'd spit in his coffee, then gave me detention for disrupting the class. From that moment on, I was a target. He'd look for any reason to humiliate me, downgrade me, or flat out ignore my work. The breaking point was that Orwell essay. 12 pages, MLA cited, loaded with analysis, symbolism, and references. I was proud of it. Until he handed it back with a red 0 at the top. No notes, no feedback, just the word plagiarized scrawled across the front. I confronted him, heart pounding, and asked how he came to that conclusion. He just leaned back in his chair and said, "You're not the type to write something like this." That sentence haunted me. It still does. Not just because it was cruel, but because he believed it. And worse, he made me believe it for a while. My parents were furious at me. They took his word over mine. My self-worth hit rock bottom. I thought about giving up, thought about dropping out. But instead, I got quiet. And when people like me get quiet, we start building. I finished school, barely passed his class, but still got into university, journalism and media. I didn't tell anyone about what happened. I just focused, fueled by one quiet, burning thought. One day, I'll make him eat his words. During my second year, I started a blog called Chalk Dust Confessions. It was anonymous. I wrote short stories based on real teachers, fictionalized, sure, but rooted in truth. The villain in most of them? A charming, manipulative English teacher who crushed students' confidence. The blog gained traction. Thousands of students shared it, saying it described their teacher perfectly. But I wasn't done. Not yet. After graduation, I became an investigative education journalist. I specialized in uncovering abuse, discrimination, and systemic failures in schools. I filed public information requests. I interviewed dozens of ex-students from my old school. I tracked down complaints, quotes, screenshots, even a few brave teachers who anonymously confirmed what we all knew. Mr. Whitmore had been emotionally abusive for over a decade. I compiled everything, a digital file, so thick and airtight it could snap a career in half. And then I published the article under my real name. The headline read, "The Classroom Tyrant, How One Teacher's Ego Destroyed a Generation of Students." It went viral within 48 hours. The school's phones wouldn't stop ringing. Parents demanded answers. Alumni donors threatened to pull funding. Former students began flooding the comment section with their own horror stories, some worse than mine. The school had no choice but to launch a full investigation. Mr. Whitmore was forced to resign, quietly, under the excuse of early retirement. No charges, no court. But his spotless reputation, gone. His career, over. He threatened to sue me, but I wasn't scared. I never lied. I never defamed. I had evidence for every word. I never broke the law. I just held a mirror to his legacy and let the world decide. Now, I teach English at a public school. I tell my students they're capable, even when they doubt themselves. I give second chances. I read every essay like it might be the one that saves a kid from giving up. I don't believe in ruining people. But if you push the right student too far, and he grows up with a pen in his hand and a memory that doesn't fade, he just might write your ending for you. Story 3. My parents raised me, but they also secretly raised my twin brother in the basement. I always thought my childhood was normal. 2 parents, a quiet house on a dead-end street, a backyard with a rusted trampoline, and a creaky old basement no one ever used. My parents said it was unfinished and dangerous, full of black mold and broken pipes. I never questioned it. I was an only child, homeschooled until high school, and we didn't have many visitors. My parents said the world was dangerous, that kids got corrupted easily, that I was better off learning from home where it was safe. I didn't push back. They were loving, attentive, and weirdly strict, but I didn't know any different. That changed when I turned 17. It started with the knocks. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Soft, rhythmic knocking from the vent in my bedroom floor. Then it got louder, more desperate. I told my dad, and he said it was just old pipes settling. But it kept happening. Every night at 2:17 a.m. Always the same rhythm. Like code, like someone trying to communicate. I started recording it. I showed my mom one morning. Her face went pale, like corpse-level pale. She grabbed my phone, deleted the video, and grounded me for asking questions. That's when I knew something was wrong. I waited till they both left for work one day and went into the basement. It was supposed to be unfinished, but there was a padlock on the door, a new one. I picked it with a bobby pin. Thank you, YouTube. The stairs creaked under me, dust floating in shafts of light from the tiny windows. At first, it looked like any other basement, dark, cold, empty, until I saw the door. A heavy, reinforced steel door near the boiler with a keypad. No handle. I stared at it, heart racing. There were scratch marks around the edges. Faint, but real, like someone had tried to claw their way out. That night, the knocks changed. They weren't at 2:17 anymore. They started after I fell asleep. And this time, they came with a voice. Whispers. Just one word, repeated like a chant through the vent. Brother. 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 I confronted my parents the next morning, calmly, asked them if there was something in the basement, something alive. My dad slapped the table so hard a fork jumped. He screamed that I was too curious for my own good. My mom cried, literally sobbed. And then she said the words that cracked my world in half. He wasn't supposed to survive. I didn't speak. I couldn't. She told me they had twins, me and another boy. But he came out different, violent, screaming, biting. He was sent to a special facility as a baby. But the doctor said he couldn't be helped, that he was too unstable. My parents were told to let him go. But they didn't. They brought him home and kept him in the basement. They called it containment, said he was never normal, said he wasn't like me, that they had to raise us separately to keep me safe, that he wouldn't understand the world like I could. My mom tried to justify it, said they fed him, taught him, tried to love him. But he grew up without sunlight, without friends, without freedom. And apparently, he never forgot about me. That night, I stayed up. I waited for the knock. I whispered into the vent, I hear you. Silence. Then one knock. Then another. Then breathing. He whispered back, in a voice that sounded like mine if it had never learned to speak properly. You're real. The next day, the basement door was gone. Gone, replaced by drywall and paint like it had never existed. My parents refused to acknowledge it, said I was hallucinating, said I needed therapy. But I know what I heard. I know what I saw. I moved out 6 months later. But I still have nightmares. Of the knocking. Of the scratches. Of a face that looked like mine, but wasn't, smiling from the shadows, whispering one promise over and over. You got the world. Now I want it too. Story 4. My wife disappeared. Then I found secret messages between her and our teenage son. My wife vanished 3 months ago. No note. No struggle. Just gone. One morning, I woke up and her side of the bed was cold. Her phone was on the nightstand. Car still in the garage. Purse untouched. She had simply disappeared from our house like she was never there. At first, everyone thought she had just walked out. The police said adults are free to leave if they want to, but I knew her. We'd been married 16 years. She wouldn't leave our son, Sam, especially not without saying anything. He's only 15. She used to call him her sunrise. She'd never leave him in the dark. But what haunted me more than her absence was his silence. Sam barely spoke after she vanished. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't cry, just locked himself in his room and said, "She's not coming back." That was it. I assumed it was shock or trauma. I tried therapy, counselors, grief specialists. Nothing reached him. Then, last week I found something. I was cleaning out the laundry room when I knocked over a basket. Out fell an old phone. Not mine, not hers. An old burner, cracked screen. No lock. I almost ignored it until I saw the last message. Don't worry. He'll never find out. I love you. Sent from her. To Sam. My heart stopped. I opened the message thread. There were hundreds of texts, late-night messages, code phrases, coordinates, hidden feelings. The deeper I read, the more I felt like I was peeking into something I was never supposed to see. At first, I thought the worst, that there was something inappropriate, but the messages weren't romantic. They were secretive, yes, but full of panic, fear, warnings. He's getting suspicious. I left the key in the vent. If anything happens, tell the librarian. She knows. I think he knows about the shed. Do not trust your father. That last one broke me. I was his father, wasn't I? I confronted Sam. I showed him the phone. I expected lies, tears, screaming. Instead, he just stared at me and said, "You weren't supposed to find that." Then, for the first time since she disappeared, he spoke more than one sentence. He told me everything. That she had been planning to leave for months. That she was scared of me. That I changed 2 years ago, became colder, harsher, different. He said she found something in my study. A file, photos, names, dates, a hidden past. He said my real name isn't the one on my ID. I laughed at first. Thought it was paranoia, grief, a child lashing out. But then he went into my locked study, pulled out the vent cover, and inside was a file I had never seen before. Photos of me, from before I met my wife, surveillance style, dossiers. A name I didn't recognize. A different city, a police report, a fire, a death certificate, my own. According to this file, the man my wife married, me, died in a house fire in 2007. But I'm right here, aren't I? I don't know what's real anymore. My wife is gone. My son is terrified of me. And I keep having flashes. Memories that don't belong to me. A hospital, a name tag I don't remember wearing, a mirror I can't look into for too long without feeling wrong. I tried calling the librarian. The number was disconnected. I went to the shed. It's locked from the outside with a padlock I never installed. I don't know who I am. I don't know what she found. But whatever it was, she ran from me. And now I'm starting to wonder if I should have run too. Story 5. My sister killed someone by accident, so I made sure she took the blame for my crime. My sister Lily has always been the good one. Straight A's, church on Sundays, never swore, never drank. I, on the other hand, was the mess. The screw-up, the one who always came home reeking of weed, bloodied from fights, or half-conscious after some party. But Lily loved me anyway. She always did. Even when I didn't deserve it. The night she killed someone, I was the one who got the 2 a.m. call. She was sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. All I caught was, "I didn't see him. I swear I didn't mean to." And what do? Please help me. I found her parked on a dirt road outside town, shaking behind the wheel of her Honda Civic. The front bumper was dented and streaked with red, and about 20 feet away, in the tall grass, was the body of a man. His face was twisted like he'd seen it coming too late. His leg bent the wrong way. His phone lay beside him, the screen cracked, but still glowing. She had killed someone. At least, that's what she thought. But I recognized the guy. His name was Brandon. He was a dealer, one I knew too well. Because I had stabbed him. Earlier that night, I was at a party. Brandon showed up. We'd had beef for months. Money, turf, some girl. It didn't matter. He pulled a knife first, but I finished it. It was sloppy, fast, angry. He staggered off into the woods behind the house, and I left him to bleed out. I never expected Lily, on her way home from a study group, to be the one who found him, or to hit his already dying body in the dark with her car. But in that moment, something inside me clicked. She thought she'd done it. And I saw a way out. She was panicking, rambling about calling the police. I grabbed her shoulders, looked her in the eye, and told her what to say. "You didn't run. You stopped. You called me. That's all that matters." She nodded, and I handled the rest. I made the 911 call. I waited beside her while the police showed up. I played the supportive brother, holding her hand as she confessed through tears. They believed it. Why wouldn't they? Clean record, shaken girl, obvious accident. The autopsy said he died from internal trauma. No mention of the stab wound that was already crusted over by the time they found him. And just like that, her accidental hit and run got ruled a tragic misjudgment. No charges, just probation, therapy, and the heavy guilt of thinking she'd taken a life. But she didn't. I did. She still cries about it sometimes. I comfort her, tell her she was brave, tell her it wasn't her fault. And when she says, "I wish it had been me instead," I just nod and say nothing. Because it wasn't her. It was me. And I got away with it. Story 6. I witnessed a hit and run at 12 and blackmailed the driver for 20 years. I was 12 when I saw a man die. It was one of those quiet weekday afternoons. I was riding my bike near the edge of town, past the bridge where the streetlights barely worked. That's when I saw it, a silver BMW speeding down the road, tires screeching, then a thud, a horrible wet sound, and a man tumbling like a rag doll across the asphalt. The car didn't stop, not for a second. I dropped my bike and ran to the man. He was still breathing, gurgling like he was trying to say something. His hand grabbed mine, then went still. I just stood there, frozen. Until I saw something fall from the car. It must have bounced off during the hit. It was a small metal license plate frame, cracked and bent, but the dealership sticker was still on it, and just like that, I had a lead. I didn't tell the cops everything. I told them I found the man already lying there, that I didn't see who did it. But that wasn't true. I did see the car. I remembered the license plate, at least part of it. I remembered the face behind the wheel. The man driving was someone I recognized, a rich guy named Curtis Bellamy, owner of a car dealership, sponsored our school events, smiled like a damn politician. But I knew what I saw. So I made a decision. I kept my mouth shut until I turned 18. That's when I mailed him a letter. I didn't threaten to go to the police. I just reminded him of the day. Described the scene, the noise, the dealership frame. Then I told him that I needed help paying for college. And I knew he could afford it. He didn't reply. But a week later, a prepaid tuition statement showed up in my inbox. So I pushed further. Over the next 2 decades, I never had a real job. My rent covered, my car paid off, my mom's medical bills gone. Every time I ran low, I'd send another quiet little note, never too greedy, never too often, just enough to remind him I'm still here. I learned later he built his empire off fraud, money laundering, dirty deals. The hit and run was just a glimpse of the monster underneath. And yet, he feared me, a kid, a ghost from a dark road, until last week. He died. Heart attack. No warning. His empire collapsed overnight. Investigators swarmed his properties. And suddenly, I wasn't getting anything. No more money. No more silence. And worst of all, one of the agents knocked on my door. Apparently, he kept a file on me. Every letter I sent, every bank transfer, copies of surveillance footage from a private investigator he hired to watch me in case I turned on him. He didn't trust me. Of course he didn't. Now, they want to know why a car dealer was secretly funding some random man's life for 20 years. They're digging. And I'm running out of lies. But I'll tell you this much. If I had to do it all over again, I'd still pick up that license plate frame. I'd still write that first letter. And I'd still bleed him dry, just like he left that man bleeding on the road. Because justice didn't come from a courtroom. It came from me. And if they try to pin this all on me now, well, I've still got secrets left to trade. Story 7. She mocked me when I confessed, so I made sure she never mocked anyone again. Her name was Camilla. She had the kind of beauty that didn't feel real. Bright green eyes, sharp smile, every guy in school orbiting her like she was the sun. But she wasn't just beautiful. She was cruel. The kind of girl who knew exactly how powerful she was and took joy in using it, like a blade. I was nobody. Quiet, average, the background noise of high school. But I liked her. God, I liked her. We were paired up for a history project, one of those long-term things where you actually have to talk, work together, meet outside class. And for a while, it felt like something was there. She laughed at my jokes, texted me even when it wasn't about school, started calling me nicknames. I let myself believe it meant something. So, the day after we presented our project, I told her how I felt. My hands were shaking, heart pounding, but I was honest. I said I liked her, that I'd never liked anyone like this before. She stared at me for a second, then started laughing. Not a shy giggle, not a "this is awkward" laugh. No, full, loud, cruel laughter that turned heads across the hallway, and then, loud enough for everyone to hear, she said, "You? Seriously? You thought I liked you back? Oh my God, that's adorable." I stood there, humiliated. People stared, some laughed too, others just looked away. And something inside me snapped. That day, I promised myself I'd never feel that powerless again. I didn't want revenge. Not right away. I just wanted control. So I started paying attention, watching, learning things about her. See, Camilla had secrets, things she didn't want the world to see beneath all that shine. A fake internship on her college apps, a sugar daddy she met on Telegram, a private Finsta where she posted photos mocking her friends. She wasn't just mean, she was playing with fire everywhere. I collected it all. Over the next 6 months, I became a ghost in her life. Quiet, unnoticed, but always nearby. I made a fake profile and slowly built trust. Posed as someone older, richer. She took the bait, told him everything, even sent photos. Stupid, reckless stuff she never thought would backfire. And then I waited. College admissions day, the one she bragged about for months. Harvard early decision. She wore the hoodie every day like she was already on campus. That morning, I hit send. Every fake transcript. Every sugar daddy conversation. Screenshots from her Finsta where she called one of the admissions officers a bald, rat-faced freak. I sent it all directly to the school's anonymous integrity tip line. She got the email 2 days later. Her Harvard acceptance was revoked. Her Instagram went private. Her parents stopped posting about her brilliant future. And Camilla? She stopped smiling in the hallways, stopped mocking people. She'd still come to school, but she walked like she was afraid someone was watching. Because someone was. I never told anyone, never gloated, never said a word. But every time I saw her pass by in silence, her head down, I remembered that laugh. And I knew she'd never mock anyone like me again. Story 8. He planned to bomb the school. I helped him make the blueprint. I never thought I'd find myself tangled in something so dark, but life doesn't always give you choices. Sometimes it just throws you into the fire, and you have to decide whether you burn or fight back. It started in freshman year when I met Alex. He was the kind of kid who never raised his hand, never smiled, always sat alone. But there was something about him, an intensity I couldn't ignore. He carried around a battered notebook filled with strange sketches and notes, machines, designs, weird symbols I didn't understand. Most people ignored him or whispered behind his back, calling him creepy, weird, dangerous. I felt bad for him, but I kept my distance. Then, one day, out of nowhere, he asked me to meet after school. I was hesitant, but curiosity got the better of me. He pulled out his notebook and showed me a blueprint. At first, I thought it was some kind of sci-fi gadget. But then I realized it was a bomb. Not just a sketch, but a detailed design of how to build one. He said he was tired of being invisible, tired of the constant bullying and torment from kids and teachers alike. He wanted revenge. He wanted people to see him. I should have run. I should have told someone right then. But instead, I stayed silent. I was scared. And somehow, I felt responsible. Maybe because no one else had ever tried to understand him. So I helped. I helped him refine the blueprint, making sure it would work on paper. We spent hours after school working through the mechanics, figuring out what parts were needed. I told myself I was just keeping him calm, that maybe if he had someone to talk to, he'd back down. But deep down, I knew better. Weeks passed, and the sketches got more detailed. He started buying small parts online, hiding them in his locker. I watched as the shadow in his eyes grew darker. I felt trapped, like I was helping a time bomb tick closer to explosion. One night, I snuck into his room when he was out and hacked his laptop. That's when I found the countdown timer, set for exactly 1 week later. I panicked. My heart hammered in my chest. I realized this wasn't a cry for help anymore. It was a plan in motion. But telling the police, turning him in, I couldn't do it, not yet. He was still my friend, broken and desperate. Instead, I did the only thing I could think of. I sabotaged his blueprint, changing key details so the device would never work. I sent anonymous tips to school security with enough clues for them to act, but not enough to trace back to me. I planted bugs in his messages, hoping to catch him before it was too late. The day of the countdown, the school went into lockdown. SWAT teams poured in, searching every classroom and hallway. Alex was arrested without incident, confused and scared. Later, I heard he confessed everything. The entire plan unraveled before it began. No one knows I was involved. Not even Alex. Sometimes I wonder if I did the right thing, or if I just dragged myself deeper into darkness. But I know one thing, I saved lives that day. Now, whenever I walk past that school, I think about what could have happened if I'd stayed silent, how close we came to disaster, and I remind myself that sometimes the darkest plans need the quietest heroes, even if those heroes carry scars they'll never show. Story 9. I found out my daughter was switched at birth, and I chose to keep the wrong one. It all started with a routine pediatric appointment. Lily, our daughter, had just turned 9. She'd always been a bit of a mystery to us, beautiful, curious, whip-smart. But sometimes it felt like she was a stranger in our home. She didn't resemble me or my wife in any obvious way. People would comment on it constantly. She must take after someone else in the family. Her hair was several shades darker. Her eyes weren't the same warm hazel as ours, and even her mannerisms, certain reactions, sensitivities to food, allergies none of us had, felt alien. But biology is weird, we figured. We loved her fiercely. None of it really mattered. Until that phone call. The hospital she was born in was under investigation for a string of procedural errors from the night of her birth. A nurse, now retired, had come forward with suspicions that records and ID tags weren't properly handled on a chaotic night when the hospital had been understaffed and flooded with patients. There had already been 2 confirmed cases of babies being switched, and they were conducting a broad sweep of birth records and offering free DNA testing to anyone born there that week. We agreed, mostly out of curiosity, never imagining it would actually mean anything. But 2 weeks later, everything changed. The DNA results came back. Lily was not biologically related to us. At all. The world stopped spinning. I remember just staring at the report, hands shaking, reading it over and over again, hoping I'd misunderstood some technical jargon. But it was clear there had been a mistake. A catastrophic, irreversible mistake. And our daughter, our sweet Lily, had been switched at birth with another girl. Her name was Emma. The hospital contacted the other family, and they agreed to meet. I remember the first time we saw them in person. The father looked almost exactly like me and Emma. She looked like a photograph of my wife as a child brought to life. Same smile, same soft curls, same crooked little dimple on the left cheek when she grinned. It was surreal. I felt like I had stepped into an alternate universe. Meanwhile, Lily sat beside us, confused but calm. She didn't know the full story yet. She was just happy to be going on a family outing, she called it. I couldn't stop looking at her, how her small hand clutched mine, how she kept leaning into me, trusting me, unaware that the ground beneath her life was beginning to crack. The next few weeks were hell. Legally, the hospital had obligations to present options. We were offered counseling, meetings with legal teams, and suggestions for gradual reintegration with our biological daughter. The other parents were kind, gentle people. They were just as devastated, just as blindsided, and just as torn apart as we were. Their love for Emma was no different from ours for Lily. And yet, everything felt wrong. My wife cried every night. I tried to stay composed, to think rationally, but I was spiraling too. I started watching Lily sleep, listening to old voice recordings of her first words, remembering the scraped knees I'd bandaged, the lullabies I used to hum while rocking her to sleep. Every single memory, every milestone. It wasn't fake. It wasn't borrowed. It was real. It happened. We built this life together. And that's when it hit me. Biology didn't make me her father. Time did. Love did. When we sat Lily down to explain what had happened, she didn't cry. She just said, "But I'm still your daughter, right?" My heart shattered in that moment. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Yes, forever. Nothing will ever change that." We made our decision. We chose to keep Lily. Yes, I know how that sounds. I know people will say we should have taken our biological child back, that blood is thicker than water, that we had a responsibility to raise our real daughter. But what even is real? If we gave Lily away, wouldn't we be doing to her exactly what had been done at birth? Replacing her, erasing her, treating her like a file misfiled in the wrong cabinet. We couldn't do it. We wouldn't. We stayed in contact with Emma and her parents. We arranged visits, shared holidays, opened a new kind of family bond. It was awkward at times, painful even, but there was a strange beauty to it too. Watching Lily and Emma play together, each carrying echoes of a life they weren't born into, made us all realize that families aren't built on genes. They're built on choice. Emma calls me Dad, sometimes. I don't correct her. Her parents are gracious. Lily still calls me Daddy. And when she does, there's no doubt in her voice. No hesitation. No fear. Just love. There are nights I stare at old baby photos, wondering what I missed with Emma. What first steps, what sleepy cuddles, what whispered bedtime stories never were. But then I look at Lily, sprawled on the couch, laughing at a movie we've seen 100 times, and I know I chose the right life. Not because it was the easy choice, or the logical one, but because it was ours. And I will never give her up, not for blood, not for biology, not for anything. Story 10. We paralyzed the principal by mistake because we hated him. We hated Principal Dunley, not in a harmless, he's so annoying kind of way, but in the deep, bitter, hate him so much it keeps you up at night kind of way. He wasn't just strict, he was cruel. He'd call kids out over the intercom to shame them for failing grades. He suspended a girl for crying in class because he claimed it was a disruption. He once made a kid with anxiety read an apology letter out loud in the cafeteria for being late too many times. So, yeah, we hated him. It wasn't just me, it was our whole little group. Chris, Tal, and me. We didn't fit the mold of perfect students, and he made sure we never forgot it. Chris had to repeat a grade after Dunley accused him of cheating. No proof. Tal got disqualified from a scholarship after the principal dug up a 2-year-old meme he claimed was offensive. And he called my mom in for a meeting just to suggest I might have a defiance disorder, because I asked too many questions in science class. So we came up with a plan. Nothing violent, just something to shake him, humiliate him. The idea was simple: make him fall in front of everyone. We bought industrial kitchen oil, the kind they use in school cafeterias, and added in a thick layer of Vaseline for good measure. Our window was tight, 5:30 to 6 p.m., after most staff had left, but before the cleaners made their rounds. Tal stood lookout while Chris and I carefully smeared the mix outside his office door, right where he usually walked through with his coffee at 7:55 a.m. the next morning. We even scattered a few papers near the doorway to make it look like he tripped. We weren't ready for what actually happened. He didn't just fall. He launched. One foot hit the oil, and his body lifted, twisted in the air, and landed squarely on the small of his back with a thud that echoed down the hallway. We stood there, hidden behind lockers, eyes wide, waiting for him to move. He didn't. At first we thought he was faking. He was dramatic like that. But then he started mumbling for help. He couldn't move his legs. The nurse came running. Someone called 911. An ambulance showed up and rolled him away on a stretcher. The whole school was buzzing. We were frozen. At lunch we found out the truth. Fractured spine, severe nerve damage. He would never walk again. That night, I sat in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to breathe. Chris tried to joke about it, called it karma, but his hands were shaking. Tal didn't say a word for 3 days. We waited for the cops to show up at school, but they never did. No cameras, no witnesses, no proof. The district blamed a janitor for leaving the floor wet. Lawsuit pending, case closed. But it wasn't over for us. Chris got expelled later that semester for punching a teacher and moved away. Tal became a ghost, barely talked, barely smiled. Me? I saw Mr. Dunley again, months later, in a wheelchair, at graduation, clapping politely. I felt something crack inside me when our eyes met. He looked peaceful, not angry, not bitter, just calm. And in that moment, I wondered if he knew. If he saw the fear on our faces that day and put it all together. Maybe he pitied us. Maybe That was worse. Every time I hear wheels rolling across tile, I think of that fall. Every time someone laughs too hard at a prank online, I want to scream. We wanted to teach him a lesson, but all we did was ruin a man's life and our own. If you have enjoyed our Reddit stories, don't forget to like the video and comment which story you enjoyed the most. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the sound of rain.